nuclear, food and energy security, the implementation of the UN Charter, the withdrawal of Russian troops and stop of hostilities. Ukraine offers its own formula for peace.
We are already preparing a special summit this winter, Summit for Peace, for our country and for any other people who can experience the same aggression, the same terror that Russia brought to our land. The Ukrainian formula for peace is 10 clear points that can create a new security architecture that is globally important, something that will return freedom to our entire Ukrainian land, to all our people, and what will serve as guarantees of freedom and security to other nations.
Russia's alleged aspirations for peace come down only to talking about it. The Kremlin is not taking any real steps. According to analysts, there is no fixed peace plan. There are only attempts to buy time and build up the military potential of the Russian army.
We see the continuation of mobilization. It does not end up in Russia, it continues further. And we see the increased presence of Russian troops in the temporarily occupied territories. We see that fortifications are being built. We see that the Russian economy is being transferred to the war format by and large. We see that they are gathering troops in order to try already in the new year of 2023 to turn the tide on the fronts.
And for this, the president of Russia will not spare 300,000 Russian soldiers. This is stated in the investigation of the New York Times. The publication, citing U.S. officials, quotes a statement by the head of the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, Sergei Naryshkin. In a conversation with CIA Director William Burns, he said that Russia will never surrender no matter how many soldiers it loses on the battlefield. The CIA believes Putin is ready to continue the war of attrition.
Most conflicts end in negotiations, but that requires a seriousness on the part of the Russians, in this instance, that I don't think we see. At least it's not our assessment that the Russians are serious at this point about a real negotiation. William Burns, director of the CIA, in an interview with PBS.
The US officials do not take the Kremlin's talk about peace seriously and call it hypocrisy.
What is Putin doing right now? Even though he sometimes says he's ready for diplomacy, he's attacking the civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. If we saw Putin was serious about diplomacy and dialogue, yes. The problem is he's doing just the opposite. He is inciting now to escalate things. Antony Blinken, US Secretary of State, in an interview with the French TV channel France 2.
The Kremlin does not even hide the fact that they are attacking Ukrainian residential and critical infrastructure in order to force Ukraine to negotiate on Russian terms.
The unwillingness of the Ukrainian side to solve the problem, enter into negotiations, moreover the actions of the Ukrainian side to abandon the agreed understandings of the text, and so on. These are all the consequences, and this also needs to be discussed. Dmitry Peskov, press secretary of the President of Russia, in the comment to Interfax.
In fact, Moscow is not going to make peace with Ukraine at all, since the result of the Russian-Ukrainian war will overestimate the further functioning of the Kremlin regime as a whole.
This regime is personalized as much as possible. It is tied to Putin, and since he took full responsibility for the illegal annexation of Crimea and collected electoral dividends from this, he thought that he would succeed in 2022 and take all of Ukraine. And it is clear when he now suffers a defeat here, it hits him according to his status. Therefore, he will grab the fight and fight to the last.
Analysts are sure that the Kremlin's talks about peace will remain talks and is in fact a common attempt to buy some time and prepare the mobilized troops for another strike against Ukraine. Reported by Dana Kolesnik, Angelika Brushnevska, UATV News.